Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is episode 7 of AWS tutorials. In this video, we'll see how to upload and read file data from AWS S3 using API Gateway and Lambda. This is a real-world backend use case. By the end of this video, you will be able to build a real-world backend API to upload and read file data using AWS S3. So in this video, we'll create an S3 bucket, we'll create a Lambda function, we'll upload file data to S3 using an API, we'll read file data as well from S3, we'll create a REST API using AWS API Gateway, and we'll test everything end to end. So this is going to be our flow diagram. Client will invoke HTTP request that will be received by API Gateway. API Gateway will invoke our Lambda, and then Lambda will read or upload file in S3 bucket. Okay, let's see how to do that. So we are in AWS console, and here you just make sure you are in the correct region. And now let's search S3. So let's create an S3 bucket first. Here we'll click on this create bucket. Here let's select our general purpose. Let's provide the bucket name dev by Shashank API and S3. And let's leave all the configuration as it is. And click on this create bucket. So now S3 bucket has been created. Now let's create a Lambda function. Let's click on this create function. Here we'll select author from scratch and let's provide the function name. So let's put dev by Shashank API integration Lambda. The runtime will select Python 3.14 and let's create the function. So now our Lambda function has been created. Let's move to the code section. Here we'll do one thing. Let's print the event first. And we'll see how to fetch the values that we'll get from API Gateway. And let's deploy this code. Now let's create an API. We'll search for API Gateway. Here let's click on this create API. Here we're going to create REST API. Click on this build button. Here we'll provide the API name dev by Shashank API integration S3 upload API. In the API endpoint type, we'll select regional. Regional means this is going to be public. In the security policy, we'll select this recommended security policy. Now let's create the API. So now the API has been created. Now let's create a resource. Resource is kind of a namespace, we can say. And here we'll provide our resource name. That is, let's put document and create the resource. So here inside this resource, let's create two methods. One is get and one is post. So post we need to upload the file on S3 and get we need to read the file from S3. Okay. So let's click on this create method. Here let's select post. In the integration type, we'll select Lambda. Let's enable this Lambda proxy integration. We'll see what is this in this series later. And here let's choose that Lambda function and leave all the configuration as it is. So that post method has been created. Now let's create one more method for get. Here we'll select method type as get. Integration type will be Lambda. Let's enable this one. And here we'll again choose the same Lambda. And just leave all the configuration as it is and create the method. So let's test the post method first. So let's click on this post method. And if you scroll down in the right hand side, there is this test section. Here we are not going to provide any query string parameter. We need to provide a request body. So inside the request body, we'll provide a JSON object. So JSON object will contain file name. Let's give sample .txt. So this is going to be the file name that it will create it on S3 bucket. And let's provide the file data. So I'm going to put this in the file data. Let's copy it and paste it. You can provide, by the way, any string here. That is fine. And let's click on this test button. So here we have received 200 status and hello from Lambda. So now let's see the event object that Lambda has logged into the CloudWatch. Here we'll go into the monitoring section and let's click on this view CloudWatch logs. If you see here, we have this log stream. Let's open it. And here, if you see, this is the event. Let's copy it and paste it in JSON viewer. Let's click on this format button. Okay, if you see the resource name is slash document, HTTP method is post, and if we scroll down here, if you see there is this body key, and here we are getting the JSON object that we have passed from API gateway. So if you see there is this file name and file data, and it's in the string format, so we need to do JSON loads. So now let's complete that code first. So here first we'll fetch the resource. It's a event resource. Now HTTP method, event HTTP method. Now let's put the condition if resource equals to slash document, and if HTTP method equals to post, print post, and here we'll implement post logic. Now I'll if HTTP method equals to get, we'll print get, and we'll implement get logic. Okay, else we'll raise an exception. So now let's implement the post logic. So now here what we have to do is we have to fetch the data from event. We have to fetch file name and file data, and then we'll have to write it to S3 bucket that we have created. Okay, so let's fetch file name first. For that we need a body. So we'll get it from event body, and then we'll do JSON loads. And here we'll get file name, that is going to be body in file name. Here we'll get file data body, and then file data. Okay, now we'll write a function that will upload a file to S3 bucket. The dev write to S3. Here we'll pass file name and file data. Okay, so now here what we need boto3. Okay, so we'll import boto3. We'll create S3 client. It will be boto3.client S3, and then we'll provide the bucket name. So let's copy the bucket name from S3. So let's copy the bucket name and paste it here. Now in this function, what we have to do, we have to use S3 client, and we'll call put object method here. Here we need to provide a bucket, that is going to be bucket name. Here we need to provide key. So key we are getting in the file name. So let's do one thing. Let's create one folder, and there we'll put all our files. So here what we'll do, we'll create a documents folder, and inside this document folder we'll create the file. So here we'll put that file name, and now body, and this is going to be file data. We'll write JSON nums of file data. Now let's call this function from the post. Okay, let's do one more thing. From here return the success status. Status code as 200, and in the body we'll write file uploaded successfully. So let's return it from here. Okay, so let's deploy the code. And now there is one thing. In the IAM role, we have to provide the permission to call this put object and read object method. Okay, so for that we'll go into that IAM role. We'll go into this configuration. We'll click on this permission button, and this is our IAM role. We'll open it. So here if you see there is this default policy so that Lambda can write blocks in CloudWatch. Okay, now let's click on this add permission, create inline policy. Here in the service we'll select S3. Now in the actions we have to search for put object and get object. Get object we'll use to read the file. In the resources, let's select all for now. Let's click on this next button, and in the policy name let's provide the policy S3 policy and create the policy. So the policy has been created. Now let's test it from API. So this is our post method. We are inside this test section, and here we'll provide the same JSON object, file name and file data, and let's click on this test button. So if you see here, the status is 200 and file uploaded successfully. So now to test it, let's go to S3 bucket. So let's open this S3 bucket. And if you see here, there is this documents folder, and inside this document folder, we have this file. Okay, so if you see here, file has been created. This is the date and this is the size of that file. So guys, to see the file, you can just select it and download it. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's implement the get API as well, so that we will be able to read that file as well. Okay, using the API gateway. So let's go to API gateway. Let's click on this get button. And here what we need to provide the query string parameters. So in query string parameters, we'll provide a file name, and here we need to provide the file name sample doc.txt. Okay, and now let's click on this test button. So if you see, we are getting hello from Lambda because in the Lambda function, we have not implemented get logic. Now first see the event object in CloudWatch log groups. Here we'll go back. We'll open this log stream, latest one. So if you see here, this is the event. Let's copy it and paste it in JSON viewer. Let's format it. So here in the resource, we are getting this document. HTTP method is get, and inside this query string parameters, we have this file name and its value. Okay. So let's copy this query string parameters and let's fetch this file name from here. So we are in Lambda. Now here, what we'll do, we'll fetch the file name. So file name, we'll get it from event, query string parameters and file name. Okay. So this is going to be our file name. And now let's write a code to read the file data. For that, we'll write that read file from S3, and here we'll provide a file name. So here let's write response equals to S3 client dot get object. Here let's put bucket name and then key. Okay, now here we'll get the response, we'll get that file data. Okay, so to read the content, what we'll do response body, and let's read it and decode as a UTF-8. Okay, and then return it. Now let's call this function from here. Okay, and we'll return the response. So our code is ready. Okay, and in the IAM role, we have already provided permission for this get object. Now let's deploy this code. The code has been deployed successfully. Now let's test it. So we are in get API. Inside this query strings section, we'll provide the file name. Okay, and let's click on this test button. So here the status is 200 and this is the response body. So if you see here in the response body, we have this double quotes before and after this string. So the reason is, so if you see here, while writing it to S3, we did json.dumps and then file data. So that's why it's adding double quotes before and after the string. We added json.dumps because if we are going to pass JSON object instead of a string, so that it will be able to handle it. That's why I've added it. And if you want to see, let's try it removing this json.dumps. Okay, and let's deploy the code. Let's go to API gateway. Here, let's click on this post API. Okay, now in the request body, let's provide a JSON object, file name, test.txt, file data. I'll copy it from test file. I'll copy this. Okay, now let's click on this test button. So if you see here, the status code is 200 and the response body is file uploaded successfully. Now to test it, let's read the file using get API. We'll copy this file here. We'll click on this get API. Inside this query strings parameter section, we'll provide file name equals to test.txt. Let's click on this test button. So if you see here, the status code is 200 and the response body, we have not get that double quotes twice because we have removed that json.dumps while writing the data to S3. So now let's test these APIs from Postman. So for that, what we need to do is we need to first deploy the APIs. So if you see here, this action is not available right now. Let's reload this page. Okay, now this button is enabled. We'll click on this deploy API. Here, there is no stage for now. Let's create a new stage, dev, and deploy it. So now if you see here, we are inside this stage section. Let's expand this dev. Inside this document, we have this post API. Let's copy this URL. Now let's go to Postman app. So in Postman, let's create a new request. The request method will be post, and let's paste that URL. So here in the body section, let's select raw and JSON, and let's provide a JSON object. So here we'll write file name sample1.txt, and inside that file data, we'll write this is a sample file for testing from Postman. Let's click on this send button. So if you see, the status code is 200 and the response is file uploaded successfully. Okay, so now test it using get API. We'll go here. Now here let's click on this get API and copy the invoke URL. So if you see here, resource name is same. That's why the invoke URL is same for get and post. Okay, here we'll create a new request. We'll select get here, and here let's paste that URL. Now this time we have to pass parameters. File name equals to sample1.txt. Let's click on this send button. So if we see here, the status is 200 and this is the response. This is the sample file for testing from Postman. So this is what we put it here in the post API. This is the sample file for testing from Postman. So this is how we can test it from Postman as well. So now let's see why this is important. In the most real production applications, we need to store and retrieve files. So there we can use this thing. We need backend APIs to handle file uploads. And this pattern is widely used in real world production systems. And using these three services, API Gateway, Lambda, and S3, you can create backend APIs that can store and retrieve file from S3. Thank you guys for watching this video. In the next video, we'll see how to upload file to S3 using pre-signed URLs. And if you like the video, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you can get the notifications on latest videos. And if you have any questions, just drop it in the comment box.